Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Halo Caesar review. Today I'm taking a look at Wolfwalkers My Story. This is a card game for two players, ages 8 and up, and takes about 25 minutes to play. This is based on a very popular animated feature film of the same name, Wolfwalkers, and came out in 2020, I believe. It is, I believe, still featured on Apple Plus TV. And yeah, if you like animated films, I think this is definitely one that you will want to check out. I thought it was very, very well done. Enjoyed it a lot myself. But you're not here for a review of the movie, and I am not going to really compare it to the movie from this point on. The artwork that you'll see here is, the same artwork that you'll see in the movie. And so that I think was very, very important because it's so iconic, the style and the look of the movie itself, and they've carried that through the game. So I'm very, number one, very happy to see that carried out through this. And yeah, other than that, I won't really mention anything else. No spoiler alerts here for the movie, other than the fact that I enjoyed it. So, Wolfwalkers My Story is published by Value Add Games. And they provided this copy to me for purposes of this review. So we got that out of the way. We'll go ahead and show you what comes in the box and a little bit of the gameplay and what I think of it. First of all, I'll just tell you I like the game a lot. I think they've done a great job with the gameplay here and the content, as well as the quality. It's a very basic card game. So as far as components go, we have a couple different rules. This separate rule set is for a expansion, if you will, that is included in the box itself that comes with this. So I thought as far as content, that goes really, really well. I like talking about, the instructions and rule sets. This one does a really great job. It has your setup. It uses images very clearly, lots of different examples. So the rules do a great job at explaining the game. There was really no confusion on my part in both learning the game and being able to teach the game. I did play this with my son, and so just above the minimum age group there. So handled it really, really well and was able to easily grasp the strategy of the game as well. So as I mentioned, this is mostly cards here. We'll go ahead and show you what a lovely little insert here, though. They've have beautiful artwork on the inside as well. I thought that was a nice, very nice touch. You even have some along the sides of the box as well. And so very, very well done. Again, the cards rest in there nicely. Everything fits in there. That's really important to me when I'm talking about games. So like that a lot. Now that being said, we'll go ahead and show you the game itself. Let's see here. I think I messed up a few of the cards there. No worries. So what I'm going to show you is the base game itself, and then I'll show you kind of the expansion. And I'm not going to, this isn't a how-to video, but I do want you to kind of get an idea of the gameplay. And I can do that very, very quickly, which is great as well. The game also includes these reference cards, a set of reference cards for each player that has some references for kind of how you score and an idea of how many symbols there are throughout the deck of cards, which can be very important in your, decision making. So you have a set of each of those, which is very nice. I'm always happy to see when games include easy reference cards that have, important information for them to make their decisions. That being said, this deck here, you'll actually see is all the expansion. We have opportunity and permanent cards, which I'll explain in a little bit, and some cards for that. And then there's some other cards advertising some other Wolfwalkers puzzles and other gameplay stuff. but this is your expansion there. Go ahead and talk about the quality of the cards throughout are the same, which is really nice, that you can have an expansion included in the base game like this so that, the quality and everything throughout the artwork, everything matches and things like that. But we'll talk about the expansion a little bit. I just want to talk about the quality of the cards. So the cards here are good quality cards. They are not real, they're not cheaply made. They are not the highest quality cards either, though, right? So they don't have like the linen finish and that type of thing, but they are good quality cards. So that's that. Let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay. The gameplay here reminds me a lot of, in some regards, if you're familiar with Point Salad, the idea is that you have a selection of cards. You're going to shuffle this deck up, and you're going to have a selection of 4 basically resource cards or cards that have symbols on them. And then you're going to have a selection of 2 objective type cards, which are, different ways, either shapes that you're going to place into your tableau, these cards, or certain combinations of symbols within your tableau. And so you have a choice. It's very, very simple. On your turn, you're going to choose one of these cards, any of these 6 cards, to place into your tableau, and you're making a 5x5 grid. And so you can either take something that will allow you to get points if you can accomplish what is shown on that card, or you're taking these cards here, these story cards that have the symbols on them, to help meet either objectives you already have or hopeful, that you'll have different objectives in the future that you'll be able to manage that. And so what I really like about this is that it really challenges you in your decision making, right? There's each decision can be there's some kind of no-brainer decisions. There are of the different things available. That is definitely something I need or I've been waiting for. But it's really interesting, the choices that you have. Number one, when you're taking a card, early on, for example, it's kind of hard to take these objective cards because you don't yet have some of those, symbols within your tableau. So here's an example, though, that's interesting. So the Forest Playground, I will get 7 points if I can happen to have in my 5x5 grid this shape of cards where there's a tree on each of these cards. So you have a card here that has a tree symbol on it, like this one here, and then adjacent this way. So this is already a beginning of a shape. Now this isn't my grid, but let's pretend like this was my grid and I had all of these cards. I would accomplish this one here if I could get another tree symbol below this one, and if I could put one right there. Or I could go up one here and put a tree here. So as long as I have this shape, and you can rotate and mirror this shape anywhere in your grid, you're going to be able to get 7 points for each of those. You can't utilize, once you've utilized this, for example, if I had, these were all part of this shape here and I scored it, I could not utilize these tree symbols to score this specific card again. I could, however, utilize, let's say here, if I had this objective card in my grid, town with a castle, house, house, castle, I already have a house, house. And so if I can put a castle here, I would go ahead and get 9 points for that. Even though I used this card previously, the idea is you just can't utilize when you're scoring one objective card, that each card can only be used once for that objective when you're scoring it. You can score this multiple times, so if I get another, set or whatever, I would be able to do that. But really, that's the gameplay, is that you're choosing that. Now, again, interestingly enough, as you go along, you're seeing what your opponent is choosing as well. And maybe they really have been waiting for, this parent symbol to come up. Well, I know if I choose one of these 4 cards, that this top card is going to come down and replace it, making it available to my opponent on their next turn. However, maybe that would influence my decision, and I would look at that and say, hey, I was deciding between, these 2 cards here, but I really don't want my opponent to have that symbol. So if I take this objective card and put it into my tableau, then this card's going to come up and it's going to replace the objective, so it'll be flipped over. So there's that element of, hey, whatever I choose to do, now I don't know what the objective is on this other side, but there's that element of, hey, do I want my opponent to have that ability? I may not particularly like any of these, but if it's something very vital to my opponent or something like that, and one of these are fairly good, maybe I want to take these if none of the others are, looking like something that would be helpful. All right. So that being said, that's the basic gameplay. So someone starts, they choose a card, gets replaced, my opponent chooses, and you keep going until you each have a full 5x5 grid of cards. At that point, you go through each of your objective cards, and depending on whether you met those, the requirements of that, scoring points accordingly, and whoever has the most points wins. And the base game in alone is really, really good. It's really fun. You go through most of the cards, but again, you're going to see different objective cards each time, and they're going to come out in different ways. Again, primarily you're going to be seeing them on this story side, and you're not going to see necessarily all these other ones. So there's kind of 3 different types of objective cards too, and I'll just kind of show you on here since they have them all here. Shapes. So again, there's some different shapes, different symbols located in different locations. There's also arrows, which is basically, hey, you'll get 2 points for every paw symbol in this row and column of your objective card. There's other cards that are, hey, you will get 8 points if you have none of this symbol in in this column or this row. You also have double icons on different cards here, which basically mean, hey, they have to be on the same card. So you're looking for, some cards are very specific as far as they will score if those symbols are on the same card. Also, there's a balance cards here where, hey, do you have these symbols match the number of those symbols in your grid? If you do, you simply get that number of points. So again, very basic, easy to understand rule set, but a lot of strategy that comes from the decision making. There is going to be a little bit of luck, right? You're looking for a certain symbol. You drew an objective card early, like this one here, thinking, hey, we got 2 houses here, 3 house cards. I have a good opportunity that I can easily start planning for this ahead of time. I'm going to take this one and continue on. But you may go turns and turns without actually finding the castle icon here. And so that could be frustrating, right? Of, hey, man, that's not coming up. And then your opponent sees that and then they pull it to an objective instead. Now, there's so many other objectives and so many other different ways that you can try to get points in the game that, I don't think that's too concerning, but that is an element, right? There could be some frustration. There is some luck involved with that. But there's also strategy of, hey, trying to keep that from your opponent. And there's lots of different opportunities to score. All right, so that is the base game, and it plays really, really well. Plays, you know, yeah, 25 minutes I think is a great, uh, you know, time frame that they have listed on the box. You know, your first playthrough, you might take a little bit longer, but really it's fairly simple. You're taking a card, putting it in your grid. And I brought up Point Salad. Now, Point Salad has a similar mechanic where, hey, you're taking cards with certain symbols on them, and or you're taking cards as objectives to score points. This one, however, has a spatial element to it, right? So not only am I taking, hey, objective cards or, you know, cards with symbols to be able to get points from those, but I also have an element of this spatial 5x5 grid that it's important to where I put the different cards as I collect them to make the different shapes, different rows, columns, having the different. So I really think that element works well and in the game. I've already kind of mentioned the artwork, but I'm just going to mention it again. The artwork is just great. So the story cards is where you'll see, you know, little scenes from the movie itself, and they just work really, really well. And of course, they tie to the symbols in some regard, at least, right? Like house, soldiers, you know, wolf and the paws and different things, family symbol here. So they're just really, really great artwork, and I think it's really great, really well done. So I like that a lot. Let's talk about the expansion here just for a minute. Again, the base game by itself, fantastic. Now, what the expansion does with a good chunk of cards here is just add to the replayability to this game and to change the feel of the game just enough where it provides something new and fresh each game that you can play without overcomplicating things. So the way that this works is you have tons of these different opportunity cards, and it probably lists it here. There are 43 new story game mode cards, so that I think is combined both permanent and opportunities. But anyway, you can see here there's a ton of different options, and you're going to choose 3. You're going to shuffle these up, you choose 3, and you'll make these available, you know, to the side for each player can use each of these kind of special abilities once throughout the game. There are also cards that help you keep track of who has utilized these. And so I thought that was a very simple and easy feature. So here's an example here. Grid, second chance, swap the position of 2 cards you already have. So this is very powerful, you know, as you get these different cards along. Sometimes there's like, oh man, I really wish I hadn't put that there, or with this new card, I really wish I could move this somewhere else. This allows you one time in the entire game to swap the position of 2 cards. Once I've done that, I can take this little reference card, and if I'm player A, I can go ahead and do that. And the reference cards here have kind of a light and dark that correlate. But very easily we can see that, hey, this has been used by player A, or it was used by player B, or once player B's used it and then player A, then we could go to, hey, this has both been used up. There's also, so they all start like this, right? So not used yet. Very, very simple way to keep track of if they've used it. They could have used tokens or different things, but I love that they just used cards. Simplifies the manufacturing of the game itself, and it works really extremely well to be able to reference it that visually. I think they did a great job. So that each one of these reference cards correlates to, hey, did I use this or not? So there's different cards in here. There's a bunch of different ones. There are a bunch of the same ones too. So there's different combinations. So this one's the grid we talked about. Scoring. At the end of the game, choose one of your objectives, score no points for it, then choose one of your opponent's objectives and score points for it as if it were placed at the position of your chosen objective. Very cool. Swap the position of 2 cards. That's the same one. Interactive. At the end of your turn, indicate one of the opponent's already placed cards that has at least 2 adjacent places available. Your opponent must place their next card adjacent to that card. So kind of, hey, I'm going to restrict you. You need to place one there next. There's one at the end of your turn, indicate a row, and your opponent must choose their next card from that row. So, hey, you have 2 rows. You have to choose from this one. Maybe I really want one of these cards and I wanted something else as well. I could use that once during a game and restrict them for that turn, and they have to take one of these 3 cards now. So just some very, very cool different ways to interact. This one here, place one of the available cards from the market at the bottom. So, hey, I don't want my opponent to get that, but I don't really want it. Use that, put it under there. So that just provides different opportunities to either different ways of scoring or interacting directly with your opponent other than just choosing cards from the market here. Those are the opportunities. Also, there's a bunch of permanent cards. And the permanent cards here, you just shuffle up and you just choose one, and it changes the way that you're playing for that particular game. So look ahead. You can look at the objective side of the top card in the deck and story side of the card underneath it at any time. So as I said, this one here, usually you just know, hey, this is this story card, but I don't know the objective on the back. And knowing that can help your decision making, right? So in this, if you're playing with this card, you can actually at any time see 2 different story cards coming up and what's on the other side of the top card. Very cool. And really, they're like a lot like this, different things. That could have been like a house rule for the base game, right? Hey, that's how we want to play. This kind of provides opportunities to see different ways you can change the game up a little bit. Another example, planning in advance. Before setup, give each player 4 cards from the top of the deck. Each player has to select one of the objectives and place it in their grid. Shuffle the remaining cards back in the deck. So everyone's going to start with an objective card. Branched future. Setup, when preparing the deck, split it into 2 similar size. At the end of your turn, decide from which deck placement. So you'll have another deck that you can choose to pull from. Which one do I want? This one or that one? You have more options, right? So very, very cool things that change the game up. This one, end of game, extra points. Each one of these icons on your grid gives you 1 extra point. Gives you incentive to get those certain symbols. There's another one, those ones. Maybe there is no change. So you shuffle these up again at random. Maybe you just play a normal one. There's some other symbols points into the game. Different setup. Prepare 1 additional row in the market with 2 story cards and 1 objective card. There will be 6 story and 3 objectives for the rest of the game. So you have more options there that way. So see, just really kind of minor things, but that can really change the feel and open up the feel of the game, make it feel fresh and unique each time you revisit. I love that. I love that. I love that it's included in the base game itself. It's not a huge expansion. It's, got a bunch of new cards, however, but they fit it all in the same box. Fabulous, fabulous. Really enjoy it. Wolfwalkers, my story. That is how Lou sees it.